I used to think dreams were just dreams, the brain filing away the day, tossing together stray thoughts into a chaotic little movie before morning. But I was wrong. Something happened to me, something that started small, almost forgettable, but night by night, it grew until I began losing myself entirely, and I'm scared it hasn't stopped. It began on a Thursday. I'd had a long day at work, nothing special. Traffic sucked, the coffee tasted like warm chalk, and my inbox felt like a hydra. Delete one email, and two more took its place. The only thing I remember clearly is how tired I was when I got home, like the kind of tired that lives in your bones, not your muscles. I didn't brush my teeth, didn't set an alarm, just collapsed into bed and sank into sleep. But when I woke up, I wasn't in my apartment. I was in a stranger's room. That's not even the weird part. I've had dreams like that before. Dreams where I'm someone else, somewhere else. But this was different. I could feel everything. The texture of the sheets, the faint draft under the window, the throb of a headache just behind my left eye. It wasn't dream logic fuzzy. It was real, clear, too real. I sat up, heart already racing, and looked around. The walls were painted a dull beige, like every tired hotel room you've ever seen. A suitcase lay open on the floor, half packed. The closet door hung open to reveal a few wrinkled shirts. I saw my reflection in the mirror above the dresser. And that's when the panic hit. It wasn't me. It was a man, late 30s, maybe early 40s, pale skin, hair thinning at the crown, a small scar on the chin. Eyes, hazel, not brown like mine. I leaned closer, trying to find something familiar. There was nothing. My hands weren't mine. The voice I spoke with, hello, wasn't mine. It was slightly hoarse, deeper, unfamiliar in my own ears. I stumbled to the bathroom and turned on the light. Still the same reflection, still this stranger. I opened the door, hoping this was some part of the dream I could steer. Lucid dreamers talk about controlling their dreams. I wanted to wake up, scream, jump, do something to break the illusion. But when I opened the door, a woman looked up from a couch in the living room. She smiled. "Morning, babe." My legs went weak. "Hi," I managed. She didn't seem to notice anything wrong. Didn't blink at the awkwardness in my voice or the confusion in my eyes. She stood up and kissed me on the cheek. Like it was normal. Like I was normal. "Coffee's almost ready. Want eggs?" "Sure," I said automatically. I sat there in that kitchen, watching her move around like we'd done this 100 times. I caught my reflection again in the dark glass of the microwave. Still him, still not me. I thought, maybe if I played along, the dream would end. Maybe I'd just drift back to my body. But it didn't end. We ate breakfast. She asked about work. I improvised. Said something vague about clients. She laughed, told me not to stress. Her name was Amber, I learned. We'd been together for years. She worked from home. She kissed me goodbye like it was nothing. The sun passed overhead. The light in the apartment shifted. And still, I was him. I tried to leave, maybe wander outside, find something that would snap me awake. But when I stepped onto the sidewalk, everything looked right. Real. No melting buildings, no floating clocks, no signs I was dreaming. I asked a guy at the bus stop what city we were in. He looked at me funny. Chicago, he said, like it was obvious. I've never lived in Chicago. When night came, I lay back down in the stranger's bed and stared at the ceiling for hours, afraid to close my eyes, afraid I'd never see myself again. But eventually, sleep came anyway. And I woke up in my own bed, back in my apartment, my reflection, my voice. It was like nothing had happened. A bad dream, a long, weird, vivid nightmare. That's what I told myself. Until it happened again. The next night, I fell asleep like usual. And when I opened my eyes, I was in a different body. Not the same man. This one was younger, maybe mid-20s. Tattoo on his forearm. I was in a bunk bed, in a messy room, posters on the wall, heavy bass thumping through the floor. A party? Voices outside the door, laughter, shouting. I stumbled into the hallway, trying to piece it together. Someone handed me a red cup. Yo, Kyle, you alive, bro? I nodded. Yeah, just tired. They laughed. Classic. Man, you were gone last night. Gone where? I tried to play along again, smiled, drank, nodded when people talked to me. I didn't know anyone's names, but they all knew me, called me Kyle. I looked in the mirror, and sure enough, new face. Again. I felt dizzy. The bass in my ears, the sweat in the air, the press of bodies around me. It was too much. This wasn't a dream. It felt too consistent. That night, I passed out on the same bunk bed and woke up the next morning in my body again. And so it went. Every time I slept, I became someone else. A retail clerk in Portland, a retired math teacher in Tampa, a kid in high school, somewhere in rural Michigan. Each life felt fully fleshed out. Friends, family, memories I didn't know, but somehow could know if I tried hard enough. The longer I stayed, the more I felt myself being drawn in. And always, I returned to myself in the morning, safe, whole. At first, I thought I was going crazy. Then I thought maybe it was a gift. A strange, terrifying gift. But then came the night I entered a body that didn't want to let go. And that's when the nightmare truly began. It was maybe the 12th or 13th time it happened. By then, I had started keeping track, scribbling down names, cities, even snippets of information I could remember when I woke up. I was trying to find patterns, some meaning. Maybe these were people who had died. Maybe I was crossing into memories or parallel timelines. It was a theory, a fragile one, but it helped me stay sane. Until the night I became him. At first, nothing seemed off. I woke up in a room that smelled like dust and plastic, cheap carpet under my feet, a small TV flickering with static. It was dark, probably early morning. There were no windows in the room, just a single steel door. My body ached. Every muscle pulled tight like I'd been tense for hours. My throat was dry. My tongue was sore, like I'd been biting it. I sat up slowly. The room spun for a second. My hands were large, calloused, faint scars across the knuckles. One fingernail was split and bleeding. I didn't recognize the place. It looked sterile, impersonal, like a clinic, or a holding cell that someone had tried to decorate with normal furniture. I stood and walked to the door. No knob, just a slot, like the kind used for sliding in food trays. I knocked. Hello? Nothing. I pounded harder. Hey, someone there? Still nothing. I turned back to the room and tried to breathe. Calm down. Think. It's a dream. Just a dream. That mantra had helped before. It would again. I found a small table in the corner with a notebook on it, pages torn out. The pen was missing, but on the last page, scrawled in shaky handwriting, were 3 words: "Don't trust me." The hair on my arms lifted. I flipped through the rest of the notebook. Blank. No other writing. Just those words. Over and over, like they were burned into the paper. I started to pace. I needed to wake up. I slapped my face, bit my tongue. Nothing. The door made a click sound, then a soft metallic creak as it swung open. I froze. A man in a white lab coat stepped in. Bald, glasses, calm expression. Behind him stood another man, big, muscular, holding what looked like a stun baton. "Good morning," the doctor said. His tone was rehearsed, friendly, like I was a guest, not a prisoner. "How are you feeling today?" "Where am I?" I asked. "You've had another episode," he said gently. "Do you remember anything?" "No." He nodded, scribbling something in a small chart. "That's okay. Happens sometimes. I want to leave." The doctor smiled. "Of course, but we need to talk first about what you did last night." "I didn't do anything," I said. His eyes met mine. His smile didn't change. "That's not what the footage shows." I stepped back. "What footage?" "Do you know where you are?" I shook my head. "You're at Glenridge Recovery Hospital," he said. "You were transferred here after the incident at the halfway house. You've been with us for almost 6 months now." I laughed. It sounded hollow. "You've got the wrong guy." He looked sad. "You've said that before." I glanced at the mirror on the wall. It was one-way glass. I was sure of it. Someone was watching, recording, studying. The doctor motioned to the guard. "Let's give him a few more hours. Increase the dose." The big man stepped forward, pulling something from his belt. I backed away. "Number, I don't belong here." Everything flashed white, then black. When I woke again, I was strapped to the bed. My arms and legs were secured with thick leather cuffs. My mouth was dry, my head heavy. I tried to speak, but my tongue barely moved. The same doctor stood at the foot of the bed. He looked tired now. His coat was unbuttoned, his smile gone. "You attacked an orderly last night," he said. Again. I shook my head weakly. "Wasn't me." He sighed. "You keep saying that." I strained against the cuffs. "Please, I don't know who I am here. I'm not. This isn't my life. I go to sleep and wake up in other people's bodies. I'm not this man." He looked at me for a long moment. Then he said, "That's the most coherent thing you've said in weeks." I blinked. "You've been babbling nonsense, screaming, hurting yourself, hurting others. And now, suddenly, you're lucid, talking like you're someone else?" "I am someone else," I insisted. He stepped closer. Okay then. Who? I hesitated. My name's Mark. I live in LA. I'm a graphic designer. I live alone. My apartment's on. Do you know your birth date? Yeah, November 17th, 1993. He pulled something from his pocket, a folded paper, unfolded it and read aloud. Patient, James Keller, born July 2nd, 1986. Committed under court order after. Stop, I snapped. That's not me. He folded the paper again. You've claimed to be 6 different people in the last month. Because I am. He studied me for a long time. I believe you believe that. Then he turned and walked out. The lights dimmed. The door locked. And I screamed. That night, I didn't sleep. I didn't know if I could sleep. And I was terrified to find out what would happen if I did. I don't know how long I stayed in that room. There were no windows, no clocks, no natural rhythm to track the days. The lights dimmed at intervals that could have been hours or minutes. Food came through the slot in the door, but only when I was restrained. They stopped trusting me. Maybe they never did. And I stopped trusting myself. I kept telling them who I was. I repeated my name like a lifeline. Mark Daniels, 31, lives in Los Angeles, graphic designer, allergic to strawberries, favorite movie is The Thing. I repeated those facts to the walls, the mirror, to my own reflection when I was allowed to look, because I could feel him. James Keller, whoever he wasn't gone. Sometimes I'd hear whispers in my own head, like thoughts that weren't mine, memories I didn't recognize. A woman screaming, a car skidding across wet asphalt, a motel room filled with empty bottles. None of it felt like something I lived, but they came with emotion, dread, guilt, shame. As if the feelings were trying to convince me the memories were real. Then came the night I finally slept again. I fought it as long as I could, bit my tongue, focused on the ache in my arms, counted the lines in the ceiling tiles. But eventually, my body gave out, and I dreamed. I dreamed I was sitting at my kitchen table in LA. Sunlight streamed through the window. My phone buzzed. The coffee was warm. My laptop screen glowed with an open Illustrator file. It was my life. My real life. I wanted to cry. I whispered, "Thank God," over and over. But something felt wrong. There was a sound behind me. Software. Wet. I turned. James was standing in the doorway. Not a reflection, not a hallucination. He was there. Same face I'd seen in the mirror of that sterile room. Scar on the knuckles. Pale, sunken eyes. "You're using my life," he said. I stood. "This isn't yours." He shook his head slowly. "You think this is your life? But you're wrong. You're in my head." "No," I said. "I don't belong to you. You're the dream." He laughed. It was dry, bitter. "Then why do you remember my pain?" I opened my mouth, but I couldn't answer. Because I did remember it. Not just flashes now, full images. A small girl in a pink hoodie running across a parking lot. A dog barking in the distance. The girl stepping off the curb. The scream. The sound of tires. the weight of the bottle in my hand. I gasped. That wasn't me. James stepped closer. We're not so different. I backed away. You're not real? He grinned. Neither are you. I woke with a scream. Back in the bed, still strapped. But my heart was racing like I'd just run a marathon. Someone must have heard, because the door opened minutes later. This time, it wasn't the doctor. It was a woman. Late 50s, maybe. Tight gray bun. No name tag. She closed the door behind her and sat beside the bed. You said your name is Mark Daniels? She asked softly. Yes, I rasped. She looked me over. Can you tell me what year it is? 2025. She nodded. Do you know where you are? Not really. She folded her hands. I'm Dr. Hendricks. I specialize in dissociative identity disorders. I've reviewed your case. I stared at her. I don't belong here. So you've said. She looked at me like she believed something. Maybe not everything, but something. James Keller, she said slowly, was found wandering in a field in Wisconsin 6 months ago. No ID, no memory. He was dehydrated, bleeding from the hands, repeating a name. Amber. My blood ran cold. Amber. The woman from the first body, Dr. Hendricks continued. He became violent during intake. Several outbursts, attempted escapes, repeated self-harm. But in the last few weeks, his language changed. He began referring to a different identity. Yours. Because I'm not him, I said. I'm me. She studied my face. You've claimed lives all over the country, all different, all plausible, but never any details we could verify. I'm not making this up. Do you think someone's done this to you? She asked. Experimentation? Possession? Technology? I hesitated. I don't know. Or, she said gently, do you think you're losing your grip on who you are? I clenched my fists. Number, I'm still me. But something's using me, hijacking me. She was quiet a long time, then said, would you talk to someone who claims the same thing? My breath caught. Someone else? She nodded. I thought I was the only one. You're not. She stood. Think about it. I'll return tomorrow. That night, I wasn't restrained. For the first time in days or weeks, I slept freely. And again, I didn't wake in my own body. This time, I was in a woman's body. Late 30s, sharp features, short blonde hair, hands that trembled slightly when I moved them. A tiny apartment with peeling paint and a flickering kitchen light. A phone with dozens of missed calls from a contact named Jason. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the phone. And that's when I heard her voice, from inside me. Don't touch that, she said. I froze. She laughed, bitter and low. You're the new one, huh? Took you long enough? I tried to speak, but no sound came. Oh, don't bother, she said. You're just renting space. Her voice echoed in my skull. Let me guess, she continued. You think this is some sci-fi glitch? Like you're body hopping through dreams? Hate to break it to you. You're not the dreamer. You're the dream. And then, for the first time, I felt myself being pushed out. It's hard to describe what it felt like, being pushed out of a body. It wasn't pain exactly, not physical. It was more like being smothered by static, like every part of me, my thoughts, my memories, even my name, was being muffled, buried under wet concrete. I fought to stay, clawed at the edges of my awareness, but the woman, whoever she really was, had done this before. I felt her seize control, her breath, her hands, her weight. Then I was floating, not awake, not asleep, just gone, like a file minimized but never closed. When I came back, if you can call it that, I wasn't in the woman's body anymore. I wasn't in James Keller's either. This time, I was standing on a crowded subway train, fluorescent lights buzzing, a stale, mechanical stink in the air. People swayed around me, heads down, faces slack. Most stared into their phones. Nobody looked at me. I didn't recognize my hands, dark skin, long fingers, a silver wedding band, a small white scar on the palm. I looked at the reflection in the subway door. A man in his 50s, graying beard, sharp jawline, sad eyes. And for the first time since this nightmare started, I didn't feel new in this body. I felt old, tired, like I'd been living here for weeks, maybe months. Memories flooded in all at once, like someone had lifted a dam. I saw a home with a brick stoop, a dog named Lucky, a wife named Janice, two sons, Aaron and Elijah. Their faces were mine now. Their laughter pierced me, not as background noise, but as something I loved. I staggered, grabbed the rail to steady myself. Who was I? Mark? James? The woman from the apartment? Or this man? This father with a full life and a warm home? The train stopped. Doors slid open. Without thinking, my feet moved. I exited the car and climbed the stairs to the street. A rain-heavy sky. The smell of deli meats and cigarette smoke. New York, maybe? My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out. Janice. Home. I answered. Hey. Her voice came, tired but gentle. You still stopping by the store? I froze. I can, I said carefully. What do we need again? A pause. You okay? Yeah, I lied. Just a weird day? She laughed softly. Every day's weird lately. When the call ended, I stared at the phone. Photos, messages, notes, all consistent, all real. It was like I'd been living this life already. But I didn't remember choosing it. I walked aimlessly for blocks, trying to ground myself, find clues, patterns, a sign I was dreaming. Then I passed a storefront window and saw myself again, not the man I was now, not the reflection in the glass. I saw Mark, my real face. He was just standing there, inside the glass, staring at me, eyes wide with recognition. I stopped cold. He opened his mouth, but no sound came. He looked desperate, panicked, and then something dragged him back into the darkness behind the glass, like claws in the shadows. I screamed. People on the street glanced at me, then turned away. No one helped. No one ever does in dreams. I ran, I didn't know where I was going. I just knew something was wrong, deeply wrong. This wasn't like the others. I wasn't a visitor in this body. I was anchored, like I had roots here, like I was being trapped. That night, when I lay in bed next to Janice, yes, I even made it home. I didn't try to stay awake. I wanted to see what came next. I wanted to find the exit, but I didn't sleep. I couldn't, because he came back. Not in a dream, not in a memory. In the hallway, Mark, me. He stood there like a ghost, dripping, hollow-eyed. And I swear to God, Janice didn't see him. She rolled over, whispered something in her sleep, but I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Mark raised a finger to his lips, then pointed at me, and mouthed two words, "Not real." I blinked, and he was gone. But something had changed. I turned to Janice. Her face was peaceful, too peaceful. Her breathing wasn't real. It looped like a recording. I got out of bed and walked to the kitchen. Everything looked the same, but wrong, like a set. I opened the fridge. Inside, every item had the same expiration date, February 29th, 2024, a date that doesn't exist. I dropped the milk. The container vanished before it hit the ground. The room shimmered, glitched. I backed away. This was no longer someone's life. It was a construct, a cage, and I'd just found the first crack. I didn't sleep again after that. Not in the real sense. Whatever world I was in, this hollow, glitched-out version of someone's life, it wasn't letting me rest. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw him, myself. Mark? Or maybe just a fragment of who I used to be. I started testing the limits, opening every door, repeating patterns, watching for breaks in the illusion. I counted people on the street. They repeated, same outfits, same faces. If I stepped into one store, walked out, and circled the block, it reset. Time didn't move forward. There were no clocks that worked, no news, no weather changes. It wasn't a dream. It was a loop, a trap, and I wasn't alone. That's when I saw her again. The woman from the apartment, the one who had pushed me out. She was sitting on a park bench, feeding pigeons that never ate. Just flapped, circled, repeated. I approached slowly. "You figured it out," she said without turning. "What is this?" She smiled at the birds. "A holding pen. A waiting room. Call it whatever you want." "For what?" "For them to decide what to do with us." I sat beside her. "Who's they?" She turned to me then. Her eyes were darker now, not black, just empty, like something had burned out behind them. "You ever heard of dreamers who never wake up?" she asked. "People in comas, vegetative states, brains still active. No one knows what's going on in there." I nodded slowly. "That's here," she whispered. "This place. It's where they go." "But I'm not in a coma." She gave me a look. "Aren't you?" I swallowed hard. "No," I said. "I keep waking up. I go back to my body, to my life. This isn't permanent." She shook her head. That's what I used to think too. I stared at her. How long have you been here? She didn't answer. Instead, she pulled something from her coat pocket. A photo, crumpled, torn at the edges. A little boy, maybe 5 or 6, smiling at the camera, missing his front teeth. My son, she said. His name was Connor. I used to wake up and hold him every morning, and then one night, I had a stroke in my sleep. Her hand trembled slightly. I never came back. I sat in silence. There's a war in here, she continued, between us and them. Them? The other selves. The ones that don't want to leave. You ever notice how easy it is to become them? To forget who you are? I nodded. That's because they're not just dreams. They're cast-offs, old identities, fractured souls, people who were real once, maybe. Or maybe they're just pieces of us that got lost. Doesn't matter. They've been here so long, they don't want to die. I stared down at my hands. This loop, I said. How do I get out? She turned away. You don't. There has to be a way. Sure, she said softly, but it's ugly. I leaned in. Tell me. She glanced around, then whispered, You have to kill the loop. Burn it from the inside. Break the pattern. They'll fight. They'll scream. But if you cause enough of a rift, the system can't sustain it, and it collapses. Then maybe, just maybe, you wake up. I felt cold. How? She looked me in the eyes. You already know. And somehow, I did. I stood up, left her there on the bench, walked down the same street I always walked. Only this time, I didn't follow the loop. I smashed it, threw a trash can through a shop window, shoved a man into traffic. He disappeared before he hit the street. No blood, no body, just a flicker of static. I kicked open the door to my fake apartment. Janice was there. She looked up from the table, smiled. Hey, babe. I grabbed the chair and hurled it through the wall. The wall shimmered. She stood slowly. What are you doing? You're not real, I said. Her smile twitched. You don't have to do this, she said in a low voice that wasn't hers. We can give you anything you want, any life, any dream. I stepped closer. I want my life back. You won't survive out there, she warned. You're broken. Don't you remember? I remember enough. I walked into the kitchen, grabbed a knife. Not because I planned to use it, but because I needed to see if it was real. It was. Heavy, cold, sharp. Janice, or whatever she was, stepped back. Her skin began to crack like porcelain under heat. You'll regret this, she hissed. I already do. And I plunged the knife into the mirror. The glass exploded. Light poured through the cracks in the walls. The ceiling peeled back like paper. The floor collapsed under me. And I fell, screaming, falling through memories, faces, lives, voices. I saw James Keller curled in a fetal position in that hospital cell. I saw Kyle, the frat boy, passed out at a party. I saw the old man in Florida, staring at the ocean like he was waiting for it to speak. I saw me, Mark, lying in bed, in a hospital room, Wires in my arm, tubes in my nose. I was comatose, and someone else was in my body.